We move now to Europe, where President Vladimir Putin ordered a unilateral Easter ceasefire in Ukraine and ordered Russian forces to end hostilities. Let's listen in to what he said.
Руководствуясь гуманитарными соображениями, сегодня с 18:00 часов до 00 часов с воскресенья на понедельник российская сторона объявляет пасхальное перемирие. Приказываю на этот период остановить все боевые действия. Исходим из того, что украинская сторона последует.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and Moscow Mayor Sergei Sorovyin attended an Easter service led by Patriarch Kirill, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, who is a strong supporter of Putin and advocates for the war in Ukraine. Meanwhile, air raid sirens went off in Kiev and Kharkiv on the evening of April the 19th, just hours after Putin announced a surprise one-day ceasefire in Ukraine for Easter. The sirens in Kiev lasted around 15 minutes with no attacks reported. In Kharkiv, the sirens sounded 3 hours after the ceasefire was supposed to begin. In Kiev, residents attended an Easter Mass, staying inside the church due to the city's midnight curfew. At St. Michael's Monastery, worshippers held the first part of their ceremony outside, with church officials leading a procession before gathering for prayers. Let's hear what the residents from Russia and Ukraine had to say about Easter ceasefire.
Я считаю, что оно ни к чему не приведет. Пасхальное перемирие не приведет к миру. Потому что Украина все равно не будет соблюдать эти договоренности. Так же, как они сейчас продолжают бомбить эти наши энергообъекты. Понимаете? Мы прекратили вроде бы как, а они как продолжают, так и продолжают.
Розумієте, ця людина не договороспособна, він не вміє домовлятися, він вміє тільки силою брати, він ніколи не піде на домовленість. Так, як ми хочемо, він хоче так, як він хоче. Не буде перемир'я. Дуже жаль. Ночі ми чекаємо в Україні, а особливо в Києві, прильоти ракет. Тому перемир'я не буде.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated on social media that despite the Kremlin ceasefire declaration, Russian artillery fire continued. We stay in the region now, where in a significant development, Ukraine and Russia have conducted a prisoner swap, exchanging over 500 individuals. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy confirmed that 277 Ukrainian service personnel had returned from Russian captivity. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry reported that 246 of its servicemen were handed over by Ukraine, along with 31 injured prisoners and 15 wounded Russian soldiers. All Russian prisoners are now in Belarus, awaiting transfer back to Russia. Footage shared by Ukraine's Human Rights Commissioner Dmytro Lubinets showed Ukrainian soldiers, many wrapped in their national flag, gathered in a wooded area before sitting on the tarmac and chanting patriotic slogans. Zelenskyy added that since the start of the war, 4,552 Ukrainians, both military and civilian, have been returned. Both sides expressed gratitude to the United Arab Emirates for facilitating the exchange. We are now joined by Jim Rice, Professor of International Law, located in Vigan, the Philippines, to discuss this further. Thank you very much, Jim, for joining us. This Easter ceasefire has obviously been declared today by Vladimir Putin, agreed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy also. Zelenskyy has already accused Vladimir Putin of breaking this ceasefire. What does this say about the trust on both sides of this conflict?
Well, I think that by now it's obvious to everyone that Putin's so-called ceasefire over Easter Sunday is merely a pretext. And I think it's a pretext because just yesterday, there was a statement by Trump and by Secretary of State Rubio that indicated that they were basically thinking about withdrawing from the peace process. And I believe that this is basically what Putin is trying to do to keep Trump on board.
Jim, could this Easter truce be a prelude to genuine negotiations, or is it merely a propaganda tool for the Kremlin?
I think it's the latter. I think it's merely a propaganda tool for the Kremlin, and as I said, I think he's trying to offer something. Again, Putin has offered no flexibility whatsoever. His terms for peace are essentially that regime change in Kiev, and that essentially that Ukraine surrender to Russia. And so, yeah, it's a propaganda ploy.
Jim, what leverage, if any, does Kiev gain from this large prisoner of war swap of the war, and why does Moscow appear to have agreed to it in this particular moment?
Well, first and foremost, it's a good thing that the prisoner swap took place. Some 250 Ukrainian soldiers will be able to go home and spend Easter with their families, and be out of those prison camps, and that's got to be a good thing. Apart from that, I'm not sure.
Jim, what do you make of the state that this war is in right now? Obviously, you've said previously about the fact that the Trump administration has said through Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, that if negotiations don't move forward, the US might pull out as mediators. What do you think of the current state of the conflict and the diplomatic negotiations are going on? Are we any closer to seeing a ceasefire, do you think?
Well, given the fact that that Ukraine is a democratic nation, that they're trying to maintain freedom and sovereignty and independence, they must fight on, regardless of whether they're being supported by the United States or the European Union or whoever. They have no choice. For Russia, this is a war of choice. If they want to end the war, all they have to do is stop the fighting permanently and withdraw from the areas of Ukraine that they've occupied. It's very simple, actually.
Jim Rice, thank you very much for joining us. Always a pleasure. We now move on.